everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to take the cylinder head off Gord's old Ferguson here and take it over to the machine shop. They're going to put hardened exhaust seats in it and give it a nice valve job, and then we'll put her back together and get it running tip-top. In the previous video, we diagnosed this thing as having valve seat recession. I'll show you. It's the exhaust valves. It's always the exhaust valves. And you can see here how the exhaust valves are, with the straight edge, burrowed up into the head. Some of them 1/8 of an inch. So what we're going to do today is take the cylinder head off. I'll show you the exhaust valves, and we'll get this thing over to the machine shop. First thing we'll do is drain the coolant. Now that the coolant is drained, we'll start by removing the water outlet and the upper radiator hose and this little rod that goes to the radiator. We'll get all this stuff out of the way. Just be mindful of this. This is the compensating spring for the governor. We'll just grab that with a pair of vice grips and pull it off. And then we'll put it back on when we're done. Next, we'll get the carburetor and the manifold off. Now we can go ahead, pull out the push rods. You don't have to keep them organized. It's a mass-produced engine. The tiny little variances between one and the other are, you can more than take that up with the adjustable valve train. Oh, there it is, cast straight into it there, Z120A. That's good. Now we'll go around one by one and crack the fasteners on the head. There's 5 down each side and 3 down the middle. We'll just work our way into the center. And then once I've got them all cracked, then we'll just buzz them off. This thing is on studs, so we'll see how much fun we're going to have getting it lifted off. And before I lift it off and lose them, the exhaust valves on this have lash caps. So we're going to take those off and put them in a safe place. Now we'll grab a bar. Oh, look at that. It's free as a bird. So we just have to lift it straight up off of them studs, and we'll have a look at the bottom of it. The gasket wasn't even stuck. Heck, we could probably use that again. I was just about to put this head in the car and take it over to the machine shop, and I said, you know what? I'm going to pop a couple of valves out of it and see how bad it really is. I mean, you could see they have sunken in. There's no doubt about that. They've sunken in a bit, but they're not terrible. So I started messing around with number 1 cylinder, and what do you know? I got a pretty good result. Not perfect, but I think good enough to make this thing run and make it run good for quite some time. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get into cylinder number 2 here, and I'll show you step by step what we did. First thing, we'll use our valve spring compressor and squish the valve spring down. And I'll show you, it's got quite an interesting way of holding the intake valve in. It's kind of hard to see here, but rather than the traditional split locks like we would find, this guy has a little pin that goes through. There's a hole drilled in the valve. And where is it? There we go. This little pin goes through it and holds everything together. Kind of different, but still does the same job. Then we get our valve out. And while I'm on this cylinder, I'll take the exhaust valve out too. And the exhaust valves on this use a traditional split keeper. There's one, it's between my feet, I see it. When something falls down on the floor, always watch where it goes. Single groove. We've got nothing to lose by trying to do this, because if it doesn't work out, I'm going to put the thing back together with the same head gasket. It came out in one piece. I'm not going to change anything. We'll put it back together. If it runs, it runs. If it doesn't, then for the few minutes it takes, we'll pop the head back off and take it over to the machine shop. We literally have nothing to lose here. Okay, so there you can see the seats after we've removed the valve. And you can see how this one, it's really hard to see. But you can see here how the valve has started working its way into the head. And it's just barely touching. It's just barely touching there. It's just a mess. So what we'll do is we'll get this cleaned up. And then we'll touch it with the stones and see what we get. I am in no way an automotive machinist. I'm just going by what people showed me years and years ago when I was an apprentice. So the first thing I do is I get this wire brush on the drill and just kind of clean that up like that. Then, next step, we get, this is the mandrel for the cutter. And the guides are kind of worn on this, but it does go down there and stick. So, the first cut we're going to make is 45 degrees. We're just going to touch these seats and get them cleaned up. You don't want to really remove any material. You just want to true them up to 45 degrees. This is the machine we use. It's the right machine, the Sioux machine. You just sit it in there. You don't press down on it. You just let the machine do the work. There. And then see, we get a nice result. Now we'll move this over to the other hole and clean it. Now we're going to put the valve in the valve grinder and just slowly get her cleaned up. You don't want to take too much off it. You just want to clean the face. Probably one more pass. I'm just literally moving this 1/1000th at a time. Yep, that's got it. Now I'll show you the next step. On our valve, we want the area of contact to be kind of in the middle of the face. If it's too close to the margin, that's no good. And if it's too far back, that's no good either. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Sharpie on the face in 3 spots. Then just drop it in. And use the old, where's the old suction cup? This one here. Whoop. Then we'll see where it's been touching. You can see there that just barely. It's just barely. It's right. Sorry, I'm doing this backwards. Focus. It's right down there at just at the top of the margin. That's no good. We want to move it up. So to do that, we cut our second angle. Put our thing in, and now we're going to use a 30-degree stone. And that will take away some of this top. That'll serve 2 purposes. It'll move the contact pattern up the face of the valve, and it will unshroud the valve a little bit so it works better. So you just, again, let the weight of the machine do the work. And it's really hard to see, but we've cut the second angle there. Now we'll put the valve back in. We'll repaint it. And then the last step will be, once I've got them all cut, Then I'll go down and lap them all. But for now, this is all we got to do. There, it's hard to see, but you can see we've moved it up about not quite halfway up, which is good. That's what we want. So that one's done. So far, so good, eh? We'll do number 3 and number 4, and then I'll be back. Once it's all back together, now we're going to check it. This is the moment of truth. We fill the combustion chamber up with gasoline and hope it doesn't all come leaking out the ports. Then you know you've got a good seal. Let me go grab a flashlight. Bone dry. So we'll use our little syringe thing here and pull the gas out of this one and pour it into the next one. And I'll see you when we're done. That's perfect. All 4 of them are holding. That's very good. I also forgot to show lapping the valves in before I installed them. But anyway, we've covered that before. You just put a little lapping compound on the face of it, and you use the old suction cup tool here to lap them in. I got the deck of the block all cleaned up. I cleaned up the head gasket. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. We'll just put it all back exactly how it was, and she should be just fine. The torque on the head bolts is 70. I've gone around and done it once. I'm just going around for my second round here to make sure. And there's these ones that are kind of under the deck of the head here. Just put a big long wrench on them and do your best. Now we can lash the valves. First thing we're going to do is use a screwdriver to feel for the piston and carefully rotate the engine in the direction of rotation up until we feel the piston at top dead center, and then we'll determine if that's on the compression stroke or the exhaust stroke. So we've got this piston up top. Now we're going to pop off the distributor cap, and if the rotor is pointing here at the number 1 tower, we know that is the top of the compression stroke, and it is. So we can go ahead and lash our valves here. The setting for these are 15 cold or 13 hot. Obviously it's cold, so we're going to set them at 15. Both valves are tight now because we just did a valve job, so the valves have moved a tiny bit further into the head. So that took up all the lash that was there previously. So we'll loosen them up. You just loosen the jam nut and you back out these screws till you get the clearance you want. We've got a 15 thou clearance gauge here. And we'll feel that in there until we've got snug but not tight fit. These two feel pretty good now. The blade has just a little bit of drag in there, which is what you want. So now the firing order, you can see there is 1342. So we just turn the engine 180 degrees and we'll be able to do number 3, and then 180 degrees do number 4, and so on until we've got them all done. Valves are all lashed. Next step will be to get the valve cover back on, get that all sealed up, and put the rest of this stuff back on. The water manifold, the intake exhaust manifold, and then we'll be ready to fire it up. But right now I got to go in because it's jerk chicken night. Jerk chicken and rice. This is the water outlet for the cylinder head. We need a gasket for it. We don't have one. So, old mechanic trick, a hunk of cereal box and a little hammer. And you just start going around it. And we'll make a gasket. You just kind of hit it on an angle like that and use the edge of the metal to cut it. And the hole is, there's one hole right there. There's the other hole there. And then there's got to be a hole in the middle of it, and we'll find that too. There we go. Cheerios box to the rescue. Here we go now. It's all back together. I don't know what's going to happen. Heavens, it can't be any worse than it was. There's the key. There's the choke. Gord's battery is not too hot either. Guess we'll get my battery. All right, our first test fire didn't go too good because the battery is shot. So I got one of mine here. Let's see if we can crank this baby up. Well, I got it running finally. I found a couple of very strange things wrong with this. In the distributor here, for one thing, on a Ford, you'll have like a big fiber washer that kind of covers the points before you put the cap on. On this plate one, it's an aluminum disc. Well, the aftermarket ignition parts that were in there, the little connector on the condenser stuck up far enough that it was just touching that. So I would take the distributor out, take it over to the bench, test everything electrically, and it was all fine. But as soon as I put it back in here and put that disc on, it would start shorting out the ignition. Who knew? Anyway, that took I found that by accident. And then what did I find out? I got it going, and it was still chop, 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 chop. Two bad plugs. Again, so we have a set of NGK plugs and a set of auto lights. And right now it's got two auto lights and two NGKs because two plugs in each set were dead. This thing eats spark plugs. I don't know what. They look fine, but they're dead. So anyway, I've got 4 plugs that work in it now. When it's sitting here idling, I can pull each wire off and the engine slows down and picks back up when you put it back on. It's got good throttle response. We're going to get it outside in a minute and hopefully it's got power. But we're going to find out. Well, that'll do it for this one. We have now performed a no new parts valve job on Gord's Ferguson. And in the next video, we'll get it fired up, hopefully, and see how that goes. And if my past history with this thing is any indication of that, it's not going to go well. But we're going to muddle and fight our way through it. I refuse to be defeated by this thing. It's a machine. I'm a guy. I should be able to get this thing going again. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, please down below hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. Leave a comment, like this video, share this video. And until we meet again, this is Kevin checking out from the Claremont Classic Garage. So long for now.